Hey there, and welcome back to the OBM Show, where we share the real stories behind what it looks like to grow a business as an online business manager. Today, I'm joined by Adriana Strama, an accredited OBM who went from managing, 10 plus clients and working nights and weekends just to hit her income goals to now working part-time with a small number of retainer clients, making more and building a business that actually fits her life. Before OBM school, Adriana was deep in the VA hustle. Project management, executive assistant, client communication. She was already holding a lot of responsibility, but without the clarity, confidence, or structure that the OBM role now gives her. That's what really brought her into the OBM accreditation, and it's been amazing to watch her build a business around her strengths. And now she is one of our amazing OBMs in our associate matchmaking program, and she's already been successfully paired with a client through it. So in this conversation, we're talking about that shift, what it took to step out of the VA mindset, the power of boundaries, how she simplified her services, and what it looks like to grow quietly and intentionally as an OBM. And if you're listening or watching and wondering if OBM accreditation might be your next step, it might just be worth checking out obmaccreditation.com. That's where this journey started for Adriana and for a lot of us. So let's get into it. Welcome, Adriana, to the OBM Show. I have been waiting to interview you for so long, so I'm excited that you are here, finally.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to kind of share my story. And I know it's been a while. Personal life got in the way. OBM school and being an OBM is what allowed me to kind of still stay above water. So
Oh,
yeah.
awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a really great sort of leeway into my first question, because I want to sort of take us back before OBM school. And I want to give our listeners a chance to kind of understand what your business looked like while you were still working as a virtual assistant.
Yeah. It was chaotic. I mean, it started off really well. So I started as a VA in 2020. So right before COVID hit, I think I started a course in like January, and then COVID hit in and I was teaching at that time. So I was kind of working my way of like, how do I get out of this? How do I make my way over? And it started off great. I think it was an amazing start for me because I wouldn't have known how to get into the online world had it not been for a course similar to, right, like OBM school. So it worked well for a while. But again, the economy has been kind of crappy. So as you start to try to have better income goals, I felt like I was just capping out. Like I needed more clients, I needed more hours. And there were just not enough hours in a day to accommodate all the clients that I needed to reach those things. So, I mean, at one point I was working with an agency. So there I had anywhere between 10 to 15 clients
Wow.
that were, anywhere from hourly to like 5 to 10 hours a month. Then I had my own like private, like one-off clients as well. So I want to say at my heaviest, I was probably at like 16
At my
clients
heaviest,
altogether.
Adriana, that's
Yeah.
bananas. I mean, I
Yeah.
think at my heaviest, and I like the way you're describing it, at my heaviest, I was like, I think 9 clients, and I was
Yeah.
reeling with insanity because, I
Wow.
know that, and I know we know this, but I know maybe our listeners don't realize this, but if you can imagine holding in your mind the vision, the dreams and goals of 16 clients,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really, really ludicrous to me. That you must have been, I mean, I know that you were working weekends and nights, but did you sleep?
Right.
Did you sleep?
When I could. Yeah, it was tough because I think a lot of people have this notion that like you just kind of go in and do things. But a
Mhm.
lot of my clients were long term.
Right.
And when you grow with those clients, they expect a lot, regardless of whether they're hourly or 5 hours a month or 10 hours a month. They want you to be invested in their business. And I also wanted to be invested in their business.
I mean, 10 plus clients is crazy. I can imagine how that must have had a huge impact on you personally and professionally. When was when was the precise moment for you where you felt or realized I cannot keep continuing and doing it like this?
Oh, so a bit of a personal thing is my father ended up being diagnosed with cancer. And we're immigrants, so their English is not the best. So it fell on me and my sister to take care of all the doctor things. And she works a
Mm,
full-time job. She can't really take off. And so it's like, well, you're home from, you work from home. Like you have all this flexibility. And I'm like, that's what the paper would make you think, right?
But you didn't
You know?
know that I have 16 plus clients on my roster and I don't sleep or eat
Right.
or do anything.
Right, and so when it came to, anything outside of work, I was like, "Oh, like, I'm supposed to have all this flexibility, and I don't."
Wow.
Like, as soon as shit hit the fan, like,
Yeah.
it was like, that's kind of what made me realize it's like, I can't, like, I have to be there for my family, I have to also take care of my own health and self and all, right? Part of it is, like, finances were part of it, being able to be more present for my family, myself, my loved ones, like, was definitely part of it. And then when I started to also look at what I was doing, I also just wanted to have a bigger impact and a bigger part
Mm.
in that, right? And when I was splitting my attention between, 10, 15, 16 clients, I wasn't really able to have that impact because I mean, I just maybe someone can, but I couldn't mentally. And so I started looking at like, how can I have a bigger impact? I enjoy building systems, like, like while I don't mind the admin and whatnot, I'm like, I there's certain things I knew I loved and certain things I knew I didn't. And I started to look at like, how can I do more of this? And it was like, yeah, you can, niche down and specialize as a certain VA, but like I've always been so I didn't really wanna niche down because it felt like kind of pigeonholing myself into something.
Mm-hmm.
Again, works well for some people, but for me, I'm like, I love the variety.
I want to
And
speak to this loving the variety
yeah,
and loving doing all of these things and wanting to be in the bigger
yeah,
picture with these clients. Like, that's so profound. I mean, it's so easy for a lot of us to kind of just keep our head down and keep doing the VA work. But at some point, yeah, you realize that you just can't juggle all of the things. So, was it
yeah.
more of a natural progression? Because obviously now here you are, you get this awful news, you need the flexibility, you need to change something. So, like, what happened next? Did you look at your roster and sort of just like divide and conquer which clients you don't want to work with anymore? Like, how did you
Yeah.
make those decisions of who to keep and who to
Yeah.
let go?
Yeah, it was tough. At first I didn't. I was like, we just keep trudging along. It didn't work. Surprise, surprise, right? And it didn't work. And yeah, I mean, I started kind of looking and I've had heard of like the role of an OBM before. It wasn't like completely new to me that I hadn't heard of it before then. It was just that I wasn't sure that I could do it. I'm like,
God, can we
and I
can we just talk about this? Because in retrospect, what would you
yeah.
say to that Adriana, that one who was like debating or whether or not she had what it took to be an OBM?
Yeah, I think I would say what I eventually said to myself when I was going into the online world as a VA. It's like just do it, you know? I think that's kind of what I've learned about like my career in general. Like this I mean, technically it's less of a career pivot,
Hmm.
but like I've gone from teaching to VA, right? Like I've already gone through that career pivot and I think a lot in our lives where we're kind of taught that like you go to college for one thing and then you stick to that and that's what you do for the rest of your life, right? Because it's hard to start over and things like that. But I've just started to kind of like just do it, go after it. If it doesn't work out, you make a pivot and it's not the end of the world.
I hear that a lot. I should have started
Yeah.
doing it a lot sooner than I
Mhm.
did. Yeah. I think it's like
Yeah.
that for a lot of us. And I think for a lot of people, they keep waiting for some perfect time to start
Yeah.
doing this, or almost
Mhm.
for the clients to kind of appear or naturally sort of sort themselves off,
Right.
but it doesn't really happen like that, does it?
No, unfortunately, I think just from putting yourself out there and going after the things that feel right to you, things eventually kind of fall into place.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that, like, when you put yourself out there, like, the universe kind of returns that
Yes.
favor.
I want to speak
Yeah.
more to this interest piece because I think for a lot of people, they are interested, but maybe their drive isn't strong enough. Like, what does that really look like, being interested in
Mhm.
this role?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different for many people. For me, it's, like, systems and
Mm,
organization and, thinking strategically. Like, I always love doing that,
mhm.
teach right? Like, that's also why I gravitated toward teaching. Like, I
Yeah.
love lesson planning and all of that. I gravitated towards the VA world because I loved supporting I love the idea of supporting business owners and creating systems, whether even if it was, like, a spreadsheet to track their finances, right? Like, I really enjoyed that. Like, that didn't feel um, like, mundane to me, right?
Mhm.
Same thing now, it's like when if I'm like, if we're talking about a launch or creating SOPs because we brought on a marketing assistant and, she needs training and everything is in the business owner's mind and we gotta, get it out of there. Like those are the things that light me up and I truly enjoy them.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, yes, are
amazing.
there things that you're not going to always enjoy? Of course, right? That's with any like no matter how much you love your job, there's always going to be maybe you don't enjoy some admin or certain tasks. Um, but if you gravitate towards, I think the skill that that are required as of an OBM, and maybe you're not the best at it, but you enjoy it and you want to hone them, and it's something that lights you up, then I think that go for it,
Yeah,
you know? Because everyone's always gonna be more qualified, like, this person has an MBA and they went to
yeah.
school, or maybe they know
They
some
have
better
more
project
experience working
management.
with online
Right,
businesses than I do. So
right.
this is something that inside of OBM school we talk about all the time, this idea of identifying those
Yeah.
transferable skills that
Well,
really translate into the OBM role. Now, for me, it was very vague and I never, even
yeah,
though in retrospect I had I was the OBM with the MBA. I was the OBM
right,
with
yeah,
experience. I had a landscaping company and on paper, you would have thought that Sarah should be more confident about being an OBM, but I really didn't look at any of those as transferable skills because I really viewed this online whatever space as something completely profound and different from anything else I had ever done before. And in retrospect, I feel like that really hindered my growth and it made me start at some arbitrary square one. And I think I would have just owned it. Like you're saying, I would have owned my strategic mind. I would have owned delegating more because I knew how to do that. I would have just taken more ownership over the skills I could have transferred into this role instead of feeling like it was completely new. And so,
yeah.
as a teacher, and we have a lot of teachers that come into this
Mhm.
space, what are some of those that, if someone's listening and maybe they're like on their break from
Yeah,
teaching or it's the summertime and they're like off teaching and they're like thinking about ways to change their lives? What would you say to somebody who is like a teacher and wants to come into this space?
yeah, I mean, you already have so many transferable skills. I believe that everyone has transferable skills.
Everyone, absolutely.
Regardless of whether you had a professional career or not, like, there's just so many things you pick up in life that you just kinda have to pivot it slightly. So even as a teacher, you're lesson planning. A lot of times you're lesson planning weeks at a time, right? The same thing as thinking of,
So,
like, a launch, right? It's all the same things that go into it, right? You're constantly teaching, so think about that as training new either a VA or new team members, right? All the same exact skills that go into that. Writing SOPs, again, it's the same thing of when you're thinking of, like, the lesson
mhm.
and, the different accommodations you might need to make for students or, it there's a funny thing is, like, when I was in school for teaching, it's like, we did this, like, little activity on how you need to be really specific with your instructions
Mm.
because if you know how something goes, right? You know you can fill in the gaps, but someone who's never done something before, not gonna be able to fill in those gaps, and so, like, we did, like, making a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and, like, if you don't hey, you have to take the knife and scoop out the peanut butter and all that. So it's just, like, even, like, those little things of being able to spot those gaps that,
Yes.
like and putting yourself into the shoes of like, okay, this is a brand new person, maybe entry level. They've never done this before. Creating this SOP and making sure they have like that detailed step by step. Like that's again very. It seems like it's so simple because as a teacher, you're good at it. Like you've been doing it.
Mhm.
You have to do that for all of your students, right? It doesn't come naturally to people, and I think that's the biggest thing is that things that come naturally to you don't right? Like, you overlook that because it's like, "Oh, that's easy, everyone
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do it,"
yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
but that's not true, like, those things don't come naturally to other people.
Yeah. So now you're sort
Yeah.
of chopping down your client roster.
Yes.
What did it finally look like when it started to become more OBM-esque? Was it like a
Oh,
client that
yeah,
was like OBM in disguise where you were sort of,
yeah.
operating as an OBM? Like, how did you decide who to keep?
Yeah, and it was tough because of the agency that I was getting a ton of my clients from, and then my one, other main client, like, I had been with them since 2020.
Mm.
I started to kinda look at, like, who do I enjoy working with? Like, missions that I support because, you worked in an agency, so you kinda were given clients. Some you were like, "Oh my god, this is amazing. I love supporting them," and others you were maybe a little less excited about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I kinda started to look at that. I looked at, the hourly clients that maybe also gave me a bit more stress, and I felt like I needed to give more than I felt like I was getting back. So I started kind of, like, trimming the fat there a little bit.
Mm.
looking at like what makes sense and what doesn't, both in like what excites me and then obviously also financially, right? Because I
Mhm.
needed to get time back. Like there weren't enough hours in the day.
You must have
Yeah,
been
it was.
stretched so thin.
I hate dropping a ball.
Yeah,
So
I know
like,
that
what
about you. I already know that about you. Yeah, you are really
no,
solid
yeah,
like that. You are responsible
yeah,
and solid, and another
yeah,
great reason why you're one of our associates in our matchmaking program, right?
yeah.
So at this point in time, right, you are sort of cleaning out your roster. You're having
Mhm.
moments of, I think really owning your strengths as an OBM and utilizing them to advance your own business. What
Mhm.
ultimately led you to OBM school, or in what, like, where on the timeline did OBM school sort of fit in?
Didn't look into OBM at first. I was like, all right, let's see where we can maybe just kind of trim the fat a little bit.
Right.
And then the owner of the agency that I actually work for, we're really good friends regardless of like professional status. And so she kind of like, like I think you would be a really good OBM. That's just something you might want to like look into. I'm like, yeah, I've thought about that before. I don't know if I can do it. And so she kind of helped like talk me through it a little bit. I really appreciate her because she didn't put her own interests first. Like she was a true leader and really wanted to help me grow regardless of whether that meant she'd be losing her, like, most senior team member.
Right.
And then I had a conversation with ChatGPT, and it also said, like, "Yeah, this seems like a, really good path. Here are some resources you might wanna take a look at." I probably still have the chat somewhere really,
That's
really far
so
back.
funny.
And Sarah Noked came up. So, like, while I had known of OBM, like, the OBM, the position, I hadn't necessarily heard of you yet,
Mm.
and OBM school and all of that. So I started looking into it. I think your OBM week is kind of what sold me on that. I think I joined not long after that,
Mm.
maybe a week or 2 after that, is kind of what sold me, and I think it was just, like, the idea of having, like, mentors and a community, and you were constantly showing up, and I could see that it was like it was just a different community. It wasn't just like, "Okay, you take the course," and, like, there was just more support, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"I feel like I need that." Because of the mental, like, the mindset shift that would need to happen, like, not just the skills. I'm like, I was always good at school, so I'm like, I can learn the
Yeah.
skills,
Yeah.
it's not an issue. I'm like, but I also need, like, those mindset shifts and the support, and then obviously when you go from VA, right, like, there's so many VA roles out there, so, like, you can apply to things and you'll land something, right?
Right. Right.
With OBM roles, you can still apply to them, but it's like the red ocean versus blue ocean, right? And so you also kinda have to now, like, market yourself more, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I hate doing that, and I don't know how to do that, and I'm not good at it, and I'm not, like, a true entrepreneur and all of that. So it's just, like, I like, looking through, again, OBM week and all the resources online, about OBM school, I was just like, "This feels right."
And it is
Yeah,
a huge mindset shift. I love that you mentioned that because, I think
yeah,
it's a mindset shift around your time, right? Because here you are
mhm,
working, stretching yourself out thin,
yeah,
but it's also around your expertise because you mentioned that, you're confident from and we all have, these feelings like you were confident around your skills, you can learn new things, but then there's
mhm,
all the mindset that comes around
yeah,
being a CEO, maybe even growing
mhm,
your own agency. So I love that
yeah,
you mentioned that it was a huge mindset shift. And, I
yeah,
think stepping into a community and with mentors and with coaching where you can really
mhm,
make that shift, I would imagine in a safe environment around other
right,
people who are also shifting.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I think, like, and obviously once I invested in the program, like, just the vulnerability on the calls
Yes.
too was
Yeah.
so helpful because it's like, you can't be the only one going through it,
Yeah.
but until you experience that and you see it like, oh, like and just the coaching aspect and the community and seeing, like, others going through the same thing of you like, "Okay, I'm not the only one who feels like a failure." And then you also see people who are like, "Oh, I felt that way, and here's what I did, and I
Yeah,
got out."
and now
So it's
I'm
just like,
here, or yes, it
mhm,
feels like that for a little bit, especially,
right,
I think as heart of service professionals,
yeah,
we really do
yeah,
like serving our clients. We love helping our clients. So I think, saying no to a client because you're saying yes to what you know to be true and where you want to take this, it can very,
yeah,
very much feel like a struggle or like you're not doing
uh,
the right thing. And I think I would imagine how people must feel also when they're thinking about up leveling or becoming an OBM or sort of stretching outside of their quote unquote comfort zone
right,
to go and do something different. I think what might could be helpful is understanding maybe what changed in your client structure after you
mhm,
became accredited. I
yeah.
know we mentioned fewer clients and clarity and boundaries, but how many clients is it really? Like, what is it? What does that look like?
Yeah. So right now I have 2 clients, 2 OBM clients. I recently offboarded my longest term client, that one of the ones that I mentioned that was with
Wow.
me from 2020.
And so that
We
would have
had
been
gone
how many yeah, from 2020, that's like a good
Yeah. So
5 years as
yeah, I just finished with her like November 1st, like we like that was I had offboarded her. So we went through like evolutions of it and
wow.
um yeah, and I think part of it was like a boundary issue
It's
and
always it's
you know,
always.
right, because we had, like, grown so much together. I mean, she had originally I had started with one business, and then she had, shut it down and started growing another,
Oh,
and so there was
wow.
just a lot. Yeah, and so, originally, it was like, "Okay, cool, let's do the OBM thing," but she didn't really need an OBM in the end,
Yeah.
and there was, like, cash flow issues and things like that. So, yeah, so we ended up saying, parting our ways and saying goodbye, but yeah, so I would say that was my 3rd client, so I just off-boarded her, and now I'm gonna be marketing for another client, but that's really my like, where I feel really comfortable is at
Mm.
3 clients, which
Mhm.
is drastic change from the 16 that I used to have.
I'd say
I think that's one of the biggest things I had to learn was, like, I was trying to, like, hold on to the comfort of the clients that I had since 2020 because there was that relationship.
yeah.
Um, but, like, lines had gotten so blurred,
Oh, yeah.
and it was kinda hard to kind of reestablish that because you were kind of, like, in this, like, friendly territory
Yeah.
too. Now I'm making just as much as I did as a VA with just 2 clients now,
Yeah.
working drastically
So
less
from
hours.
16 clients to 2 making the same amount of money.
Same amount, and now and I have space to take on a 3rd where
Yeah.
I'll, again, still be comfortable and still have time for myself, my family, things like that, and then I'll be, again, making way more than I did at the VA.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
yeah,
working
it's
and having a life and having balance and,
right,
and
right,
really
where it
appreciating these 2 to
Mhm.
3 clients. And I agree with you. I always tell everybody that for OBM true OBM clients is like really the max that you can have on your
Yeah.
roster. Yes, there are projects, and I would imagine that you
Well
are leveraging our dating projects and some of the resources that
mhm,
we have. So you still have projects on the side, but we're talking about retainer revenue alone. I'd love to hear a little bit, and I'm sure our listeners and anyone watching on the YouTube channel would love to know a little bit more about these 2 clients with regard to how your business looks like, what your day looks like. Now, obviously, you don't need to go into. We want to keep client confidentiality. I know one of your clients because
yeah,
we
yeah,
actually matched Adriana inside of our. So after people become accredited OBMs and finish our OBM accreditation certification program, they can have an opportunity to join our matchmaking program where we lovingly match OBMs with perfect clients. And I knew she would be a perfect client when she came through, but I would love to hear a little bit about like what your day looks like, how you're supporting
mhm,
your clients, all that good
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So 2 clients right now. I've kind of started to structure my days where I'm working ideally from about 8 to 5. Oftentimes, I'm not working, as much. I tend to take little breaks here and there because I can right now.
Yes.
Um, yeah, but I like to structure my days where, like, when I have 3 clients, I'm alternating throughout the week between when I work on someone stuff in the
Hmm.
morning versus early afternoon and then late afternoon. So that way they're kind of getting all different varieties of my energy throughout the week
That's
versus just
nice.
constantly yeah,
This
I
is a
always
very important part because I would argue that
yeah,
we only have 2 to 3, real
yeah,
brain energy throughout the
mhm,
day. So it's usually in the morning. So I love that
yep,
you know that about yourself and
for
leverage
sure,
that.
yeah, that's and I it's funny because, like, I hate being a morning person, but it's also I know where I'm when I'm the most productive if I sit down and kinda do the work, so that's kind of how I like to structure it. I alternate through all of them. I have a little bit of admin, so I start at 8, between 8 to 9, I kinda, like, look at emails, I look at ClickUp or the project management tool, see if there's anything urgent to kinda get back to, and then kinda just plan out what I'm doing for the day, so, like, what are my high leverage tasks, right, that I can kinda structure them in. I've started to just limit meetings to Tuesdays and Wednesdays
Oh
because
yeah.
Monday just used to get so busy.
Yeah.
Um, Fridays, I only work, mornings on Fridays at this
Mm.
point, and I know I'm in, like, a weekend mindset at that point, so, like, I'm not doing any high leverage stuff on Fridays. It's just, like, prepping for the next week, getting back to emails, doing some admin stuff that, like, needs to be done once a week, but it's, like, it's just mindless, so it's, like, I can do
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
I'm, like
Then you
because
can
I'm, like, I know Friday is just my brain is not working, so it's nice because I've been able to kind of structure my days around how I work best.
Oh, I love
And
that.
I'm always obviously iterating because things change, seasons change, things in life change. But the ability to be able to do that, I'd never had before. We're just kind of like, you just power through.
Yeah, I
You
love
can-
that. It's like it's so CEO headspace to
Mhm.
really be optimizing. Like it sounds to me that
Yeah.
you are just focusing on optimizing for time, for simplicity, and
Yeah.
also for revenue naturally, and just sort
Right.
of making this season in your OBM business optimized for the things that you want. And I think it's such a beautiful
Mhm.
thing when you feel that in control,
Yeah.
and really know what your optimal strengths are. And I think it's so important to really highlight the fact that, we want to give our best, but we only have so much bandwidth. And when you're aware of it, and, I know that, time blocking is something that comes up in the program all the time, and we talk a lot
Mhm.
about time blocking, but I love how you are sort of, tying it back to, the current season and where you're going. Like I've been doing this for so long, and I look at all my babies as like, oh yeah, when I had Ella, it was like this. And when I had Liam, it was like this. And when I had
Mhm.
Daniel, it was like this. And all of the sort of things that I optimized for having
Yeah.
kids, and just how, your current season. So it's like nothing is static. So if
Mhm.
you're listening and you're like, oh, geez, I still have like, maybe you have 16 VA clients like Adriana had, and you're like, will I ever be able to like simplify and move on and optimize my business? Know that you are in control, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that when you can move into and make the shift, into retainer work, into higher level clients, it can be so rewarding, right?
Yeah.
Like, and now, I mean, did you, in retrospect, like, did it afford you the time to spend more with your family? Like, are you feeling really balanced about that stuff now?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I'm able to, take my parents to doctor's
Oh,
appointments if
yeah.
I need if something goes wrong. Like I have you know what I mean? It's not like, yes, I'm home, but I'm so swamped I
Yeah, yeah,
can't.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We have Friday dinners. I'm not able. I don't have to work Fridays at all. Like I've been working Friday, like half of Fridays. I
Right.
usually end about 12, and then I go to see my niece and my
That's
nephew,
so
and
cute.
yeah, and we do like family dinners and stuff like that. So it's like things that I never really had the time for, or if I made the time for it, it was constantly in the back of my mind, like, oh, I still have so much work to do. Like I couldn't be present, like mentally present,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if I was physically present. And now I can be like, okay, like everything's done. The rest is gonna get picked up next.
And now I can just like
Yeah.
relax and be with my
Yeah.
family and not work on the weekends anymore.
Exactly,
Oh,
right, and
man.
so now I can use my weekends for, whatever I want, and whether that's, if I do wanna do, like, some professional development things or learn something new
Yeah, because
or
that's
just
what we do. We never stop learning, right?
right. Right.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
like now I have a little bit of room on my plate. Now what can I plop on there?
right, pretty much,
Yeah.
yes. Is, like, putting myself out there, but it's, things that I'm working on, and I think it'll get better each time.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I feel you on that. I know how hard it can be to put ourselves out there. I mean, it obviously gets
yeah,
easier, and it sort of feels like
right,
an
a
alter ego,
little
and
more
it's like
natural.
detached
Mhm.
and more natural. But like I understand where you're coming from with that. And I think it's so important to really like, if there's anything to take home from today's session, I mean, there's so many things, but I think this relationship piece is
Mhm.
so important because, building relationships doesn't, it's hard to track it with KPIs. It's hard, or key performance indicators. It's hard to really know, in real time, how it's paying off, because usually relationships take a while. And, you met so and so at a conference, and so mentioned to their friend who really needs an OBM, and now you're talking to that. It can sometimes be months and weeks later before there's some kind of payoff. But it really is, for me too. It's always been, even as an agency owner, it really has always been, about relationships.
Yeah.
Now, you've been successfully paired through our OBM School Associates Matchmaking program. I would love for you to share a little bit about what that experience was like for
Uh,
you.
yeah, it was really effortless, which was
Hmm.
nice. Um,
I like that.
you kinda did all the work on the back end in the first place, right? And then we hopped
I
on
think
a
it was,
call
I
together.
mean, for in that defense, I think it was an easy match. I was like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, this is so
yeah.
Adriana and Brianna, this is so easy.
Yeah, it's just she is like the epitome of like an ideal
Yeah,
client, you know?
I know.
Uh,
I do know
just
that.
yeah, like respectful of your boundaries, knows the value of an investment, and she's a joy to work with, like just personality wise, she's
Yeah,
such a sweetheart.
yeah.
Um, she's always willing to help and figure things out too, and she loves the fact that I'm also willing to kind of jump in and help out where things are. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a really great match. She she didn't have a lot of things in place because she was always doing everything. So, like, she had some contractors that she worked with, but, like, I was her first, like, hire outside of people she had already known. Like, she had, like, her brother-in-law and her sister working, for her and as contractors, and then she had, like, a previous assistant that she worked with in another job that was, like, helping out with, like, SEO and copywriting stuff, but, like, she was doing everything.
Mm.
Um so it was one of those things where it's like and we're still working on it because there's so much information in her head that I'm like, "Yeah, we kinda have to glean that out because you have preferences," right? Like, even if we hire, like, an SEO or SEM specialist, like, they're gonna have their ways of doing things, and you have your ways of doing things. I'm like, there still have to be, like, guidelines and things that we have to kinda come up with. So we're still working on it, but we did hire, like, her first employee,
Oh,
a
wow,
marketing
employee.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, a marketing assistant, and
Nice.
she's doing really well. We love her. She's doing amazingly. So yeah, it's been nice. It's a process. There's always the kind of this learning curve of like you always think things are gonna go faster and then they take longer.
I know.
So so we're always kind of learning that, but it's going well. Yeah, I mean she has goals she wants to reach. And she wants to get more and more out of the business because she's
Yeah.
looking to start a family
Oh,
soon.
wow.
Um,
And so
yeah, so
this
we're
relationship is going on 7 months, right? So we did the
yeah,
initial pairing back
right.
in
In
gosh,
May, yeah,
in May, and
yeah.
then
Mhm.
you quickly because she was, like, ready to go, and then you
Yeah,
had
yeah.
your 90 days initially and then signed on
Mhm.
just month to month. So you guys have been going
Month,
on
yeah.
for more than 7 months now, so that's
Yeah, yeah, and it
amazing.
mhm.
I think the associates program as it stands is, like, an incredible thing, and as you know, and for those listening probably don't know this, we are always evolving and
Mhm.
so it's such an interesting thing for me, and such a heartwarming thing for me to see this successful match. And I was just, just thinking, like, has it sort of shown you anything different about the value that you bring as an OBM or even like your acumen or your business readiness? Has that shown you
Yeah.
anything? The match?
Um, I think so. One, it kinda showed me, like, what an ideal client looked like, which is
Mm,
well, always really, really important. Um, and and two, like, she values my expertise. She doesn't question when it right? Like, she doesn't question when at one point, she was attending some trade shows
mm,
and created some lead magnets and then it was just like a simple recommendation of I'm like, "No, I think we should stick with, like, the email marketing platform. There's a lot more tracking there versus sending it directly through, like, Typeform and things like that." And it was just like in the past, I would get questioned by
yes.
clients all the time, and it's like being seen as the expert, it's like, "Okay, she knows what she's talking about. She's done this before." Really just ups your confidence level too.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, and I'm constantly learning things about myself, that I didn't know before, right? Like, I used to be and I think you might remember is, like, I used to be super, like, I had, like, an aversion to metrics and analytics, like, I still won't say I love
well,
them
we're
because
not
that
number people. We're not numbers people. Right.
right, but she does run a marketing agency,
Right.
so obviously that is a big part of it, and so, like, I'm starting to enjoy them more. I'm like, I'm a little less scarred by them now, you know?
You know what I tell myself? I'm like, well, numbers tell a story in a
Right.
way that takes the emotion off the table. So if I can
Mhm.
speak to my clients in metrics, just as these numbers that
Right.
tell a story, then it's not about how I feel or how they feel the launch went. It's like bottom line, these are the numbers, and we can sort of
Right.
look at it more objectively. So yeah, I think
Mhm.
I mean, I can totally see where you're coming from with like not because also
Yeah.
too, like, I mean, arguably, it can take some time before you become acclimated to a client's business enough so that you can really harness the power of metrics. Like when you get in
Mhm.
there
Yeah.
for the first 90 days, it's like chaos. Am I right? Like you're trying
Oh,
to
yeah,
wrangle it in, you're trying to get a
right.
feel for what the client's really
Mhm.
doing and fleshing through the things
Yeah,
that maybe matter and don't matter and nothing really.
right.
Yeah, so I think it's
Yeah.
so interesting to just be very transparent about that.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think as a VA too, a lot of times, like, we would keep track of things, but, clients kind of tied those numbers to your performance
Yes.
always. And so you get a little scarred by it where it's just like, it's like this is and sometimes it is, right, tied to your performance. Like, there are
Mhm.
KPIs can be tied to obviously
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
someone.
team
Um,
KPIs, yeah.
but when you're just a general VA and you're expected to do all these things and then it feels like you're, responsible for the success of the entire business,
Yeah.
scar you a little bit.
Moving from 16 clients to having
Yeah.
2 to 3 is really,
Mhm.
that's a boundary in itself, with your
Yeah,
time, with what you're
sure.
willing to kind of keep
Yeah,
inside your brain with regard to the strategies and the vision and the goals.
absolutely.
And because you have your own business in addition to that, right? Like you're
Right,
still in
right.
your own business. And I think that's such an important part of the equation because a lot of us, not a lot of us, but it is possible to kind of leave your business to the wayside when you're busy, especially probably
Oh,
when you had 16 clients and you're like, oh my God, I know something needs to
oh,
give,
yeah.
but I don't know where to go and what feels
Mhm.
right.
Right.
What is one thing that you believed about success or business when you started out that you no longer subscribe to
Mhm.
today?
That you have to have everything figured out. I
Mm.
think and that's something that, like, in my mind, I know, but I still struggle with sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's constantly, like, feeling like you need to know where the destination is versus just treating it as a journey and letting it evolve, and I think also just understanding that the online world is so different from, quote, unquote, like, "the real world,"
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like, working out there in corporate is so different from, freelancing or running your own business, online, and
In what practical ways? I mean, I know some ways, but in what
yeah.
ways? Because I feel like people here, our listeners, they want like tangible, what are some of the ways?
Well, one is, like, the pivot, right?
Mm,
Like, they're embraced here. There's, business owners that were doing something completely different 5 years ago than they are now, and they're still successful. They're still running 6+ figure businesses.
yeah.
The qualifications, right? Trying to get a job out there, right? Like, you need a BA or an MA and this and that, and here it's like, as long as you can do the work and show that you can do it,
And you're
and
responsible
all
and
the
accountable and you get it
great,
done when you say
right,
you're going to get it done. Yeah. And you're
exactly,
not
like, that goes
disappearing or going
so
MIA.
far.
Yes.
Mhm, yeah, like that accountability and just being reliable and being willing to learn new things and just pick things up and kinda go in there and try it, like, takes you so much further, than it does, like, out there. I know, exactly what I'm doing, and this is never gonna hold me back again. It's something that I have to remind myself of constantly as well, especially, again, in the online world where pivots are common and there is uncertainty sometimes, but there's also, like, limitless opportunity. Yeah.
Limitless opportunity. I think that is such a great way to end today's interview. And what I love about Adriana's story is that it's not flashy, it's focused. She didn't grow by adding more clients, more services, more hours. She grew by simplifying, by being intentional, by choosing to value her time, her expertise, and the kind of work that actually makes a difference for her clients. So, as you know from this interview, she's part of our associate matchmaking program now. And watching her land that client match for me was such a proud moment because it really was the result of a lot of quiet, consistent work that, we all put in behind the scenes. And so I was really, really happy to make that match. And if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss what's coming next. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe and tap that bell to get notified of our episodes. And if OBM accreditation feels like the right next step for you, or even you are at all little tickled or interested, check out obmaccreditation.com. Applications are open now and it's free to apply. And at the very least, you can hop on with one of our lovely team members to talk about if it is your right next step. Now, you're going to also find all of Adriana's info in the show notes or video description below. So if you are looking for an exceptional OBM, She does have one spot on her roster. Until next time, keep growing your confidence, protecting your time, and building the business behind the business.